because it was certainly a collaborative effort, and we want to bring you up to speed on something that started out as a missing person and unfortunately ended up in a double homicide. Most of you may remember that back in May, middle of May, we had an individual, Jamie Lynn MacDonald, who was reported missing by her family. And we did some research into our records, and we found out that we actually had a little bit of interaction with Jamie the previous month, where she had called law enforcement, where she and another individual were having a little bit of an issue. That individual that she was having the issue with, we eliminated as a person of interest in her disappearance. But somebody else who was there with her at the time was Luequita Sclesky. And we started looking into Luequita, and she became a person of interest, and possibly even along with her husband, who is Duane David Sclesky. And we started looking into both of those, and kind of found out that there might be some concerns. As we do in a lot of missing cases, one of the things that we believe are motives are when an individual who is living a high-risk lifestyle, and Jamie was living a high-risk lifestyle, often becomes a victim of criminals who want to take advantage of their credit, or maybe their bank account, or even some government assistance that they might be having. So that was one of our first things that we wanted to look into to find out if she might be a victim of that. And fairly early on in the investigation, we did develop some information that Sclesky, both of them, were using our victim, our missing person, her credit card at an ATM machine. And so that, of course, led us to believe that she might not be missing on her own accord. During the course of the investigation, detectives talked to a lot of people and used a lot of very low-tech as well as some very high-tech law enforcement techniques to come up with some locations that our suspects might have been in. And they narrowed down one of the areas, and I'm not going to be super specific for obvious reasons, but an area north of State Road 50 in Hernando County between US 19 and Mariner Boulevard. And we started doing a canvass of that area. And right before Memorial Day, I believe it was the Thursday before Memorial Day, actually found an area that really concerned us and started doing some excavation of that area. And fairly quickly, detectives and forensics determined that that particular area did contain what we believed to be the remains of a human. Obviously, we assumed at the time that it was pretty likely that it was going to be our missing person, Jamie Lynn MacDonald. Unfortunately, it did not turn out to be Jamie Lynn MacDonald. It actually turned out to be another individual, Kenneth Zickendrath. He's a white male, obviously, 11/30 of 1955. It took us some time to get him positively identified, and we did, when we, in the course of our investigation, found that he was also an associate of our two people of interest. So what we did is we developed charges on those two individuals. The female, Luequita, we developed some fraud charges on her because of her using our victim's credit card and so forth. And then we had Duane, who, when he came to the sheriff's office, we knew he had a suspended driver's license and made an arrest. And we started talking to them about Kenneth, and we were able to get some admissions or confessions from both of them. But we also, obviously, detectives from Citrus and Hernando, having worked together quite a bit during the investigation, because very early on, and I kind of left this out, very early on we got some information that our two people of interest spent a lot of time, if not most of their time over the last year or two, in Citrus County. And we found some evidence that they were up here with maybe one or ultimately both of our victims. And we worked really hard with them on that. And so as we're questioning them, we got some information on our missing person. And so I'm going to turn it over to Sheriff Prendergast to talk about what detectives found with regard to Jamie Lynn MacDonald. So, Sheriff?
Thank you, Sheriff. Good morning. Since Sheriff Nenai spelled his last name, I'll spell my last name for you as well. It's Prendergast. And thank you for attending our news conference today. And as noted over the weekend, two suspects, Luequita Sclesky, 32 years of age, and her husband, Duane David Sclesky, 38 years of age, who were already in the custody of the Hernando County Sheriff's Office for a previous investigation, were arrested for the murder of Jamie Lynn MacDonald, who we have not received all the autopsy results yet to determine the exact cause and manner of death, nor have we had any of the toxicology reports yet. But she was reported missing on the 12th of May, and we now have pretty substantial evidence to conclude that her remains were recovered here in Citrus County on Friday. Our involvement in this case actually began on May 20th, when the Hernando County Sheriff's Office reached out and spoke with some of our detectives, asking for assistance locating a missing adult female. It was brought to our attention that MacDonald was possibly with the Scleskys at their residence here in Citrus County prior to her disappearance. Major crimes detectives from both our Sheriff's Office and the Hernando County Sheriff's Office responded to the suspect's residence at 3077 West Tanager Court in Lecanto, where they interviewed suspect Luequita and collected some potential evidence at that scene. Both Scleskys provided contradictory accounts about MacDonald's whereabouts and any other information pertaining to what was going to be helpful towards the investigation. Nevertheless, our great detectives working side by side collected evidence and used that evidence to lead them to a wooded area within Hernando County where they located that deceased subject that was talked about earlier. And this one right, which was Kenneth Zickendraft. And once we got the information about Kenneth Zickendraft, we obviously determined that it was not the missing woman in question, but an unidentified male. And then during this time, our search for the missing adult female continued in both counties. While following up on a lead at the Bella Villa Motel in Homosassa, Citrus County Sheriff's Detective Roscoe Watts, our detective and deputy sheriff of the year for this community, confirmed that the suspects actually paid for a room at the Bella Villa Motel down in Homosassa. He gathered other statements and evidence while he was at the Bella Villa Motel, which placed the Scleskys at that motel with both victims. On May 23rd, enough evidence had been gathered to serve a search warrant seizing the suspect's vehicle for transportation back to the Hernando County Sheriff's Office. And during the investigation that continued, Hernando County Sheriff's Office detectives were able to prove that the Scleskys were using the ATM card or the debit card of our missing female victim, as evidenced on this photograph right here. Continuous locations around the communities of Citrus and Hernando were seeing hits of this credit card being fraudulently used by our suspects. On June 14th, probable cause led us to charge both suspects for fraud. And the Scleskys were interviewed at the Hernando County Sheriff's Office with our major crimes detectives present during the interviews, observing in another room. Throughout the days leading up to the June 14th date, Citrus County detectives assisted with the searching of areas of concern throughout our county for the missing adult female, and all of the searches were met with negative results. But relentless in our pursuit, we got some additional information on the 14th, which led detectives to a creek here in Homosassa, not too far away from where we're at right now. And we retrieved a second body that is now at the medical examiner's office for a determination of the identity as well as the cause and manner of death. The autopsy has been completed, and we just await the medical examiner's reports for further details. Both suspects were interviewed at the Hernando County Sheriff's Office along with our detectives participating in the interviews, and the Scleskys were ultimately arrested for the 2 charges of murder. In Citrus County, suspect Luequita Sclesky is charged with a principal and first degree to premeditated murder and is being held at the Hernando County Sheriff's Detention Facility with no bond. Her husband, suspect Duane Sclesky, was charged with premeditated murder and is being held at the Hernando County Detention Center with no bond. Further charges are pending from both agencies at this time. With that, I'll turn the mic back over to Sheriff Dean Ice, and we'd be happy to answer any of your questions. Thank you.
You know, as I said, these things happen fairly rapidly, and sheriff's offices, as you may remember, we had a body dump last year that ended up in Zephyr Hills. The murder actually occurred in Zephyr Hills, even though the body was dumped in Hernando County. And this is a case where we had a missing person from Hernando County that ultimately we have reason to believe, in the state attorney, prosecutors on board, that she was in fact murdered and obviously dumped up here in Citrus County. But that led us, as I said, to the evidence that another body, and we believe he was probably murdered somewhere between 1 and maybe closer to 2 years ago, and was in that location. We found that body and obviously have enough information. We're going to continue our investigation. If any family members of anybody who may be missing, and what was ironic is that our victim, our male victim, Kenneth, we had no reason to believe he was even missing. So again, people who are living a high-risk lifestyle, they can go missing for an extended period of time, and nobody lets law enforcement know. So it was really very fortuitous for us that we were able to find that evidence and make a case and hold the individuals responsible for his death accountable, as well as the individuals for Jamie's death. But I think the ask here is for family and friends, and particularly people who are living a high-risk lifestyle, to be very cautious of those individuals that may want to take advantage and start collecting government assistance and or use their bank account. And we have reason to believe that they were, when they committed these crimes, they would get a hold of, as an example, the cell phone and change passwords for bank accounts and stuff so they could get access either prior to or after the murders. And so that's kind of the motive here. So if you all have any questions of myself or Sheriff Pendergast, we'll be happy to answer them. Yes, ma'am. Nice and loud for us.
Yes, I know you're waiting on the medical examiner's report to determine the cause of death for Jamie. What was the cause of death for Kenneth?
Both of them were homicidal violence, and we have enough information that the state attorney is confident with those charges and supported us in getting the warrants for both of those individuals based on some admissions, confessions, and the evidence we had all linking together. So I don't know if you want to add to that.
No, I think that's a great.
Okay.
As best you can tell, A, how did these folks all meet each other? Was it part of this high-risk lifestyle? And then B, did these meetings start out with the intention of killing these individuals?
The first question was whether these people knew each other from the high-risk lifestyle, and it is our indication, yes, that we've been able to, the detectives talking to a number of individuals involved, both in Citrus as well as in Hernando, that they definitely knew each other before that. As far as
drug buddies, I mean, they were doing drugs.
They were all involved in a high-risk lifestyle. Yes, sir. As far as what their intent was, I don't think that they sought these individuals out necessarily. We don't have evidence. Let me rephrase that. We don't have evidence to think that they sought these individuals out with the initial intention of taking advantage of them. That could be, but we don't have any evidence of that, because they did know each other, I think, for a little while. So it wasn't like they met him and the next day they committed these murders.
And hasn't pinpointed when things went sour, why.
Well, and again, I don't think we have that information, but obviously these are individuals that are very, particularly, by his own admission, Duane has a temper issue. And so we believe that you know, that's about all we can say right now. So I don't know if you have.
But the other thing that it's important is we're talking about this and think about these victims. Okay, they may have lived a high-risk lifestyle,
But they didn't deserve to.
but they did not deserve to die that way.
Absolutely.
So if any of their friends or family are out there right now that know anything about their associates, there may be other victims out there. We don't know. We have no evidence to believe so right now. But when you've got the anger issues that this man has, the potential for victims is phenomenal. And we don't know. And who knows when you're under the influence of illegal drugs, what you might be capable of doing. We just saw that happen in Tampa just 2 days ago, where somebody had some very bad behavior issues, perhaps enhanced by using illegal drugs. We don't know yet. But there are folks out there who have additional information that can help us add facts to the case file that ensures that when we get a conviction on these two individuals for their murders, they go away for the rest of their lives. And maybe even get a death penalty sentence out of it.
Thank God.
It's not going to bring these victims back, but it'll make sure that they don't reoffend.
Did this couple have kids?
I don't know that apparently they did have kids. The question was is if they have any children, and I'm being told by one of my detectives they did. I don't know if they had children in common or if they had children separately or a combination of both, but they did have children. I don't know if they lived with them, but they did have children. So.
And did they have a previous criminal history?
That I didn't get that information beforehand.
Yes, they did.
They did. Okay.
Yes.
What kind of charges previously?
Do you have that in yours? I don't have it.
Or at least the nature of the charges?
No, I don't have their prior criminal history in there.
Did they have jobs?
We believe that the gentleman, Duane, was involved in a landscaping company, but Luequita, we don't have any information that she had any legitimate source of income. But we do believe her high-risk lifestyle, possibly drugs, might have helped create revenue. So.
Sheriff, do you think with both murders happened at the same time with the bodies being located at different locations?
No, that's the male. We've come to find out. We believe he was murdered sometime between 1 and 2 years ago. Obviously, Jamie was murdered since her disappearance on May 12th. So.
How often are we seeing cases like this? Is this a common thing? Or?
No, it's well, I guess it depends on what you mean by cases like this, where people murder somebody and take over their bank accounts. It's not that frequent. But if you're in a high-risk lifestyle, obviously your chances of becoming a victim of a violent crime increase exponentially. We very seldom see somebody the victim of a murder that is not involved in a high-risk lifestyle or has a high-risk relationship with the suspect. So it is unusual in that sense for most people, but if you're involved in this lifestyle, obviously the chances are much greater. Still not great, but much greater than you would for most people that are not involved in a high-risk lifestyle.
But between both of our counties, neither one of us have alarming rates for murders in the communities. We have a lot of other crimes, especially crimes of opportunities and burglaries that occur. But as you will recall from the data that's out there, we're at a 50-year low crime trend based on the data that we continue to gather every single year and report up to Tallahassee and also report up to Washington, D.C. So Florida's a great place. It's a safe place. And law enforcement is out there on the cutting edge of doing everything we can. But really what it really comes back down to is those patrol deputies that are pushing green and white patrol cars out there and our detectives who are following up on cases that helps us keep a lid on some of these crimes, especially the most serious crimes against persons like this.
How much money were they able to get from these accounts? And, these banks, how can they just let someone goes on the account, change the passwords, and then keep withdrawing money?
Well, again, I don't have specifics on dollar amount, and I don't even know if we have that, but I do know that, but apparently Kenneth was a victim, like I said, up to 2 years ago, and I think they were still getting proceeds from some of his, maybe some assistance he was getting, I assume from the federal government or from the state. So they had, over a period of time, it's probably going to be fairly substantial. Obviously with Jamie, it's much more recent, and I'm not sure what kind of resources she had. I didn't look into that, but it is, obviously had they not been caught, they would have had at least two incomes from these individuals. And as the sheriff said, I'm glad he pointed that out, we don't have any reason to believe that there are other victims, but it certainly would not be surprising if we did. So, and there is some evidence that we still have to test and so forth that may lead us to believe that there are additional victims. But if family and friends know that their loved ones hung out with these two people and their loved one's missing, we need to know that. Either contact the Citrus County Sheriff's Office or the Hernando County Sheriff's Office immediately so we can start looking in, try to find these people and verify that they are okay.
Sometimes these cases, you know, a murder, an arrest is made within a couple of hours. It seems like this was a really complex investigation. Can you just explain from the detective's perspective how much type, you know, gumshoe type of work had to be done?
You want to take that one or you want me to?
Put this all together.
Really, what it really boils down to is the partnership that every sheriff in the state of Florida has that allows us to share methodologies, to share information, and for our detectives who work shoulder to shoulder each and every day to talk to one another and share some of the things that they're observing or they're coming across. And one little point of evidence might blow the lid off of a case. But that doesn't happen by accident. It's those relationships that we build with our fellow sheriffs and the detectives build with one another. I'm looking back at one of these rock stars that I've worked alongside of for a long time now. He's smiling at me back there. He's part of our Cold Case Advisory Commission. Thankfully, this is not a situation where it's a cold case commission case that we're entertaining and having to go forth on and trying to seek some answers to some long-term problems of an unidentified set of remains. But every case is unique, and it gets the absolute best attention that we can put into it, and that's why we're able to be so successful in solving these cases. So modern techniques, old school techniques, and there's no substitute for that personal liaison with one another out in the field to make sure that we're putting all the things together into a case file to document it and then bring it towards the state attorney and say, is this enough for you to develop a case that we can prosecute and get somebody sentenced and have them spend a lot of time in jail? Our detectives that are part of every sheriff's office in Florida get extensive training, and then they go out and get specialized training, and then they take that specialized training that allows them to not only partner with other sheriff's offices, but state agencies and federal agencies that allow us to get access to greater technology and greater reach, not just here in Florida, but all around the country, and in some cases around the world, to help us solve some of these cases like this. One of the things that's really important for everybody to understand is that this is still an open investigation. There is a lot of information yet to be discovered, as well as potential other victims that might emerge. We certainly know if you're doing this once, you're doing this a multitude of times. And if one of these folks or both of these individuals is on some type of a retirement check or Social Security benefits or some other type of government assistance, that money comes in on a routine basis every single month. So Kenneth, the charges may be into 100 or more by the time we get to finishing up that case. And in Jamie Lynn MacDonald, it may be only a month's worth of charges, but it's a substantial access to this bank account. So again, that's where the great detective work that's complementary among every sheriff's office allows us to make sure that we've got absolutely the best cases to bring towards the state attorney. And if it has to go to a grand jury, it goes to a grand jury for their determinations.
What exactly led you to the creek in HOMICIDE?
I'm sorry, what's that now?
What exactly led you to the creek that was near here?
That was through some, I don't know if I can go into a lot of details, but it was through some, again, either good old-fashioned police work, admissions, confessions, high-tech, low-tech information, but it narrowed it down. I think the suspects kind of towards the end became a little bit more cooperative, and that may have been what gave us the specific location.
And on that first victim, Kenneth, you said no one had ever reported him missing. missing subsequently did any family members, were you able to contact any of them, find anybody that knew them?
Yeah, I wasn't briefed on that, but I do know that he was apparently the murder happened again based on the information we're gathering up to a couple years ago. I'm sure we've made next of kin notification, but I don't know if he was estranged from his family. And oftentimes that's what happened when they're leading these high risk lifestyles, and that makes them prime material for somebody to take advantage of them, come in and take advantage of them. So,
Sheriffs, with Kenneth, with you saying that they continue to use his credit card, take advantage of other funding he was receiving, was he not legally recognized as deceased until you all found and identified him?
yeah, that's absolutely correct. We didn't know he was missing. Nobody really knew. They may have known he was missing, but nobody reported him. But obviously, nobody knew he was dead. And when we found him before, and obviously he had been deceased a while, we originally thought, well, this must be our missing woman. And then we found out it was a man, and then, oh, wow, now we have a whole nother body. Fortunately, we were able to tie both of those deceased to the same suspects and able to solve the case. But it was, to say it was a bit of a shocker, because you don't find a lot of deceased people, outside the normal confines of a hospital and their home. Particularly ones that are obviously the victim of homicide. So it was a bit of a shocker for us. And you talked about the detectives. The only thing I wish that we could accurately portray, and there's no way to do it. TV tries some of the documentaries, but how much work goes into one of these cases? And we hit the very tip of the iceberg with the information that was fruitful, that actually led to the arrest. We don't talk about the thousands of things they look at that turn out to be dead ends. Like the individual that she was having the issue with turned out to not be a suspect and not involved in the case, but I can guarantee you he was looked at very hard initially and then eliminated as a suspect. And there's probably dozens, if not hundreds. And when you start talking about the evidence that they have to collect and looking through and getting it tested, it's really amazing to me how quickly my detectives go through that mound of evidence and narrow it down to and same thing with Sheriff Prendergast. Obviously, we were working together on this, but neither of us have a bunch of detectives sitting on the bench. They're out working, and when they get something new, this just adds on top of it, and it amazes me what a great job they do. And talking about holding people accountable, we have a great relationship with our state attorney here, and I think that's one of the reasons why crime has gone down is in those areas that have good state attorney's offices. And we work from the minute we find a body, we start working with them because we want to give them a prosecutable case, and that's important as well. And I can tell you on this case, with what we have so far, the state attorney is very happy with the charges. And talking about misuse of personal identification, we talked about this a little bit, but Luequita she has 75 counts of misuse of personal identification of a deceased person and fraudulent use of a credit card. So there's obviously and we had those charges before we were able to make the murder charges. So I think we probably answered most of the questions, unless anybody has a real burning one, or if you have anything else to say, I think we can go ahead and wrap this up. But thank you all very much for coming. And of course, both of our public information offices, not only do our detectives work well together, our public information offices work very well together. You can contact either one of them, and they'll be happy to get you any specific information you might need. So, sure.
Yeah, I'd just like to close out again by thanking you all for being here today. We really want to thank our detectives from both agencies for their hard work and their peerless dedication to making these cases come together and getting something that we can send to the state attorney so that we can get a prosecution and put these people away, especially people like this that so cavalierly murder someone in cold blood and put them away for the rest of their lives. Again, Citrus County is a safe county. Hernando County is a safe county. We work very hard to keep those bad people off the streets. So if you ever come across any information pertaining to these murders or any other serious crime, please don't hesitate to get in touch with our detectives or talk to one of our local patrol deputies that's out there in your neighborhood patrolling your community to make sure that you're safe and that you can get back up the next day and enjoy everything that we've got to enjoy right here in this community. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the hospitality of this Emergency Operations Center. We certainly appreciate it. Good job.